First, let's go back to a few years ago when I went into the forest with a friend of the show, Dr. Bev Law. Our interaction really starts to shed light on why focusing on planting trees instead of focusing on the forest could be a problem. She measures how much carbon is absorbed and released by forests in a network of stations all over the world.
You made this groundbreaking discovery, right? So you put this carbon monitoring site in an older, mature forest. And I see the same thing here in this younger forest. So what have you found?
Well, we found that this site was a source for about the first 20 years. Right now it's about 22 years old.
So a carbon source.
Net carbon source. It's not taking up as much carbon from photosynthesis as is given off by respiration from the soil and the trees.
So it's emitting
and the
more
plants.
carbon
Yeah.
than it's absorbing.
Yeah. People are being told or thought that young trees grow fast and vigorous. But when you look at the forest, the net of all the respiration and photosynthesis makes them a source.
Here's the problem. Timber companies in this region harvest their trees at around 45 years of age, which means forests used for wood products will spend very little time as a carbon sink. The young trees will absorb carbon to grow, but according to Bev's research, it will be a net loss. Here's Bev in another clear cut.
Before this forest was cut, it looked like this one back here. They were about 75, 80-year-old trees. They did the clear cut. You see all this slash here. It's branches and stems that they didn't want, so they leave it on site. And about 50% of what is intended harvest ends up left on site, and it decomposes.
As all that decomposes, the carbon it once stored is released back into the atmosphere. This graph shows carbon storage in a forest that's cut down. The line drops during the cut and stays flat for 20 years and then ticks back up. Cut it again in 45 years and you can see the problem. But a forest that's allowed to grow old has far more needles and leaves photosynthesizing, taking carbon out of the atmosphere and turning it into trees.
Up around mature ages 80 and 100 years old, they are really taking up a lot of carbon from the atmosphere, and they've already stored 80 years of carbon.
The biggest problem with a tree farm mindset may be this: taking carbon out of the atmosphere today is much more valuable than in 20 years. That's because every fraction of a degree of global warming makes crossing irreversible tipping points more likely, like thawing permafrost in the Arctic, coral bleaching, or Amazon rainforest dieback. And with carbon dioxide at over 420 parts per million in the atmosphere, we really don't have time to misinterpret the science behind carbon